Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd Street, and today we are installing Ubuntu 16.04. Alright, so today is Thursday, April 21st, and Ubuntu 16.04 just came out. In case you're not aware of Ubuntu's release structure, there are two releases per year, the 04 release, which is made in April, and the 10 release, which is made in October. Believe it or not, it actually took me a while to figure out that the .04 stood for the month of the year that it came out, and the .10 stands for the month of the year that those releases come out. But yeah, 16.04 came out today, and the even-numbered .04 releases are long-term support releases, which means that they are supported for 2 years on mainstream support, and I think they have like 5 years of extended support. I'll have to check on that and I'll put the actual numbers up on the screen, but yeah, 16.04 was supposed to be a big release. Honestly, looking at reviews and release notes and things of it so far, and I know it just came out today, but it looks like not a lot happened. People are calling it a transition release. They're saying that a lot of new stuff is going to come out in the next 2 years, and they just kind of made this long-term support release to kind of give people a stable alternative if they don't want those changes that are going to be coming. Those are the same things that people said about Ubuntu 14.04. That was supposed to be a transition release. It was supposed to be the last version that kind of kept things calm, and then, you know, Ubuntu 14.10 was supposed to have all these changes in it. Well, honestly, Ubuntu hasn't changed, as far as I can tell, for the past 2 years. You know, they update their package versions, and that's cool, but in terms of Ubuntu itself, really, there's not a lot happening in the way of change. But that's a really bad way to promote this video, so I'm excited about Ubuntu 16.04 nonetheless. I went ahead and I downloaded it today, on release day. That's, you know, you can tell I'm excited about it. I've been waiting for it for a while because I've been saying for a long time, you know, I'm telling all my friends and family to stop using Windows and only use Linux. But here I have been for the past, you know, however many years it's been, I've been sitting here with a Windows hard drive in my computer. I've had a 2TB hard drive and a 32GB SSD with my Arch installation on my computer. I installed it using Antergos, so you might want to call that Antergos. And then I've had a 500GB hard drive in my computer with Windows 10 on it, and I've been using that for gaming. But you know, I've got Adam switched completely over to Linux on his main gaming machine. I've been trying to get Brett to switch over to Linux on his machine, and now I keep giving Michael crap because he's still using Windows on his main machine. I want him to switch to Linux. But it's really hard to tell people not to use Windows if you are still using Windows yourself. So yeah, I've been saying for a long time, the next long-term release version of Ubuntu that comes out, I'm going to install it and get rid of Windows. So yeah, I still want a separate operating system for gaming than for my productivity, because video editing software is kind of touchy to get set up sometimes, and I don't want to mess up the video editing software getting the games set up, because games can also be touchy to get set up. And there are several games I'd like to point out in my Steam library that do not work under Linux. Most of the games in my Steam library work under Linux because usually I require them to work under Linux before I purchase them. However, there are some games that I'm just such a huge fan of that I've purchased them even though they don't work under Linux, so I'm going to be playing around with Wine and virtual machines and seeing if I can't get those working one way or another under Ubuntu. But yeah, without further ado, I can talk some more while this is installing, but let's go ahead and get started installing Ubuntu 16.04. And I know you guys always love it when we've got this camera pointed at the monitor setup. This is my main machine. If I was doing this on another machine, I would be using a capture card. However, that capture card connects to this machine via USB 3.0, and this is the only computer that I have that has USB 3.0 on it. So with that explanation out of the way, let's turn the computer on. And when it first starts up, I'm going to hit, I think I hit the wrong key. We'll see if we get a boot menu. Alright, we got the boot menu, booting into our cruiser, and here is the Ubuntu install screen. The same one they had before that just kind of sits there for a while. It actually didn't sit there for that long. Now we're booting. And I wish that they would get rid of those error messages that you always see. You know, with every distro, you always see those couple of error messages. It's like, just get rid of those error messages. Clearly they're not actual errors that are going to stop anything, because I see them all the time. The computer always works anyway. Alright, here we are. We're in Ubuntu. Everything's loaded up, so I am going to just skip the whole trying thing, and I'm just going to install Ubuntu. And we do want to download updates while installing, and we are going to install third-party software and graphics. This is another reason why I wanted a separate gaming hard drive, a separate operating system for gaming than I did for my main machine. On Arch, I try to only install open source software, and within that, I try and only install freedom-respecting software where possible. Now, there are some places where I am using non-freedom-respecting software, such as the video card driver, even on my main work installation. However, when it's possible, I do try and use free and open software. For instance, I don't have Chrome installed on my main operating system. I only have Firefox installed. I've had Chromium installed in the past, but never have I installed Google Chrome on my Arch installation, because Google Chrome is proprietary, it's closed source, and I can't see what code is included in that. Google Chrome will be installed on this Ubuntu installation, because when it comes to my work, when it comes to the important things, video editing and all of that, and my day-to-day web browsing, that stuff, it's really important that that stuff is secure and that it's private, and so I want to use free and open software for my important work. However, for my gaming is less important to me than video editing and web browsing. This installation will be used primarily for gaming, and so I am going to go ahead and say right up front, on my gaming installation, I'm okay with using all sorts of proprietary stuff as long as I can get into my games. So just so you guys know, we're going to see the hard drive options come up here, and as of now, what I've done is I have shrunken down the Windows partition of the hard drive and moved it over, and I'm going to install this Ubuntu installation to another partition on that hard drive. I will be deleting the Windows hard drive. I wanted to install Ubuntu as quickly as possible so I can get this video out for you guys, and so that I can experience the new Ubuntu myself, because it's fun for me. It would have taken me a little while to back up 400 gigabytes of data, or, you know, I don't have 400 gigabytes of free space laying around right now, unfortunately, so it would have taken me a while to go through and decide what I wanted to keep and what I could delete. The easier solution was just to shrink the hard drive down to the minimum possible size. This is going on a 70 gig partition at the top of the hard drive, and then as I transfer files from that partition onto this partition, I will shrink the Windows partition more and more, and then once all of my important things are off of the Windows partition, then I will delete that and expand the Linux partition to use up the entire hard disk. That is the plan for that, just so you all know. So you can see it detects that the computer has multiple operating systems. I have no idea which hard drive it would install to if I selected this first option. I'm going to go to the manual partition editor. The first hard drive in this computer is the 500 gig hard drive we are installing to. You can see, like I said earlier, there's our 2 terabyte and our SSD that we've got Arch on, or Antergos. But we'll go ahead and we will install to this 500 gig drive. We are going to create a new partition in this free space, and we want it to be primary, if that's possible. ext4 mount/. I hope we can make it a primary partition. You can have 3 primary partitions, right? I'm pretty sure you can have 3. We'll see if it lets us. Alright, so we are going to format a new ext4 partition and mount it to root. Install now. No swap space. I don't normally do swap space. You can see on the other hard drive there's no swap space. Obviously I don't have any swap space on the SSD. I'm not into swap space, just get more RAM if you're running out of RAM. Following partitions are going to be formatted. There, continue. So while that's processing, we go through the rest of the customization options. It detects my time zone is Chicago. Continue. You know, I remember the days when it did not auto-detect your time zone, when you had to select that manually. It really is a nice surprise every time that detects correctly. I guess it's not ready for me to start putting in my account information yet. Normally after you get past the hard drives, it collects all of the other information at once. I've never had it sit here and load on the time zone screen before. There we go. Asks us to select our keyboard layout, although it is already correctly selected. Your name, Jacob Kaufman. Your computer's name, i7 Gaming. In the past, I've always made the Windows partition i7 Streaming, but I'll be streaming from Linux now, which I suppose could include this partition, or this hard drive. Password, require my password to log in because why not? Not going to encrypt the home folder because sometimes I like to move files back and forth between the hard drives while I'm booted into one or the other. Alright, so let's go through our nice, first let's open this up to distract you all, and then we'll go through the slideshow they prepared. So, full of new features. There's not many new features, but the latest version of Ubuntu. Next up, there is a new software center, and it is called the Ubuntu Software Store, apparently. Yeah, no, the old software center sucked. The old Ubuntu Software Center was really bad. This new software center is based off of GNOME software, which I have used it. It would be a lie to say I've never used it at all. I used it on Fedora a long time ago, but basically I just looked at it. I didn't actually use it long term or anything. I just opened it up like once. But yeah, Ubuntu is now basing their software center off of the GNOME software center, which is interesting because Ubuntu used to just use GNOME, but now they've got their own desktop. But they finally abandoned their old, slow, horrible software center, so that's good. And it decided I was done talking about that, so it comes with Rhythmbox. Personally, I'm a fan of Banshee. I use the Banshee Media Player over Rhythmbox just because I like its interface better. I like that it displays cover art nicely, and I like that it ties in easier into KDE for playback controls on my keyboard. You know, I'm using an Apple keyboard, and KDE lets me tie some of those keys on the Apple keyboard to control Banshee in KDE, and I've never been able to get that working under Rhythmbox. Not that I've tried very hard after I got Banshee working, but yeah. Personally, I use Banshee. Next up, Photos. This comes with Shotwell, which is a sort of a photo manager. Never really used it a whole lot. Supports GIMP and PTV. That's interesting, it says PTV Video Editor here. It used to say OpenShot, I think. Guess they've just said we might as well put PTV there, because PTV is almost version 1.0, although just like OpenShot can't quite get to version 2.0, PTV can't seem to quite get to version 1.0. I have tried PTV out. I don't like it as much as Kdenlive. Kdenlive is still my editor of choice. Ubuntu still includes Firefox, which is my web browser of choice as of now. Although, if Vivaldi ever becomes open source, I will probably switch to that. But as long as that's closed source, I do use Firefox, because Chromium, even though it's open source, it's tied into Google, and I don't trust Google with my private data. I trust Mozilla more, so I use Firefox as my day-to-day browser. Flash, I'm going to try not to install that either, although once again, this actually might end up getting Flash, this computer, because Chromium can play Twitch streams without Flash now, but I don't think Firefox can, so I may need to get Flash to watch Twitch and Hitbox and other things, but we'll see. LibreOffice comes with this, obviously, because it's Linux computer, it's going to come with LibreOffice. Not OpenOffice or anything crazy like that. Next up, we have advanced accessibility tools. Alright, so I thought it was going to say they had advanced options, and I was going to laugh at that, because Unity has very few options. Although they actually did include some new options with this new version. Like you can put the launcher on the bottom of the screen or the right side of the screen now, which I would have loved a long time ago when I really wanted a Mac. I would have loved to be able to put the launcher on the bottom of the screen to act like it was a Mac. But nowadays, I actually think that the sideways launcher is more efficient on a widescreen monitor like this. So I'll probably just keep the launcher at default, even though I used to complain about the default position. And finally, help and support. Ask Ubuntu. A ton of people go there. You know, you used to go to forums if you wanted support, but now you go to Ask Ubuntu, which is a discourse installation. It's not quite forums. It's like forums, but it doesn't have threads. It just has questions and answers, which are like threads, but they don't survive as long. They're more streamlined. So yeah, all of that is very interesting. And this thing that's here, let me look up what this version of Ubuntu is called so we can figure out what exactly that is. It is called Xenial Xeris. So, let's Google what a Xeris is. Spelled with an X. An African ground squirrel. Alright, so that's what that is. And it makes sense they would choose an African animal because Ubuntu, I believe, is originally an African word that means like community or togetherness or something. Something along those lines. I'll put it on the screen if I'm completely wrong, but pretty sure it has something to do with that. I know that I'm going to get some people telling me that I'm pronouncing Ubuntu wrong. It's supposed to be Ubuntu or Ubuntu or Ubuntu. You know, I pronounce it Ubuntu. So if you were about to comment telling me that I'm pronouncing it wrong, just don't waste your time, because I'm not going to change the way that I pronounce it. You know, if I was in the same room as like some executive from Canonical and they corrected me, then, you know, if they correct me personally, you know, I'm not going to be rude about it. I would start pronouncing it the right way then, but no matter how the officials, you know, say it's supposed to be pronounced, I pronounce it Ubuntu. That's how I've always pronounced it. That's how I've heard it pronounced the first time, and so that is how I will always pronounce it. So yeah, just, you know, if you pronounce it differently, that's great, you know? That's another great thing about Arch Linux, is that there's no wrong way to pronounce Arch. You don't say like Arch, Arch. No, it's just Arch Linux. Everyone knows how to say Arch Linux. Alright, installation is complete. Thank goodness, because I was rambling really hard there. You need to restart the computer. So let's see if Ubuntu wiped out my grub installation from Antergos and replaced it with its own, which I would not be opposed to, because it would probably be a little nicer looking. And it did. It installed an Ubuntu. Alright, well this is... I don't like that Antergos is no longer at the top of the list. Before, Antergos was at the top, and I could just press Enter. Since Antergos is my main OS, I'd rather have that at the top of the list. I'm sure there's a way to fix that. I'll adjust that later. As you can see, Windows 10 Loader is still on here as of now. Eventually that will go away. Let's just boot into Ubuntu. Let's see if this thing works. I'm going to put the headphones on, and you guys won't be able to hear it, but I'll let you know if any sounds come out. Anything exciting. Getting lots of hard drive activity right now. I'm just crossing my fingers that this thing boots, honestly. And we're going to have to get the proprietary graphics card driver installed pronto, because the open source driver always freezes and crashes my system. The only sound that I just heard was the little, you know, the bongos, like the half a second little jingle that plays when your Ubuntu installation starts up. They used to have that longer splash sound that I liked, but you know, they don't have that anymore, but that's okay. So we logged into LightDM. I think that was LightDM there. And it looks like our desktop wallpaper... Oh, alright, the text went away from the desktop wallpaper. And the first time you log into Ubuntu, you get the keyboard shortcuts. And when you start moving your mouse around, then it goes away, I think. Nope, you have to click somewhere. Alright, well here's Ubuntu, and here's the Ubuntu launcher, as you can see there. You know, I was thinking about this. When they first came out with Unity, the Ubuntu button was up here on the top bar. And I still hold that that makes more sense than having it here as part of the launcher. But that's okay. We can go to the system settings. And let's just, I want to check a few things out. Displays. Alright, I want to check out drivers. Where's our drivers area? Is it under details? No? Software and updates, maybe? Yeah, additional drivers. So we'll let that search there. Now up here, I also want to check out security and privacy. Search. Okay, online search results is finally turned to off by default. Now the Ubuntu people, the Canonical people, whoever, they said they were going to do this in a previous release. So the fact that they've finally gotten around to doing it, you know, I don't give them a huge amount of credit for it. It should never have been on in the first place. But yeah, in the past, if you searched in here, books. See, it's searching, I don't know why it came up with the webcam booth when I searched books, but in the past I would have gotten Amazon results for books if I had searched that. It's off by default because it's a privacy risk sending everything you type in your computer's main menu to a third party. Diagnostics, send error reports to Canonical, and occasional system information to Canonical. I'm going to uncheck those for now. I might come back and check them later. I'm going to read through the privacy policy later. I'm not going to do that on camera, obviously. Record file and application usage. So right now if I open up a file, it's going to show up under recent applications in here. You can turn that off if you want. I'm okay with that being on because it's all local. And some security stuff. It's all well and good. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and I'm going to look up what is the latest version. Alright, so we do have microcode loaded, so that's good. Our computer's microcode is loaded. Even though it's proprietary, not much you can do about that because it's the freaking processor code. But as far as the NVIDIA driver goes, NVIDIA Linux driver, I'm going to make sure that this is decently up to date because I usually do go ahead and use whatever Ubuntu is going to give me. Unless it's super out of date, then I just download it straight from NVIDIA. I don't want Linux drivers here. Who freaking uses NVIDIA drivers on BSD? Like, if you're going to use BSD, you might as well just use the open source drivers because that's clearly what you're into if you're using BSD. I guess, I guess I take that back. It's good that they have support for BSD. Alright, so the latest long-lived branch is 361.42, which is what Ubuntu is going to give us here. Latest short-lived branch is 358. That doesn't make sense, does it? Shouldn't the long-lived branch be the older version? Long-term support would be older? Isn't that how that normally works? Whatever. The point is that is the latest version of the driver that is available, so we'll go ahead and grab it just here. Enter the password. That's how easy it is to use proprietary drivers in Ubuntu. I know it's proprietary. Like I said, if I were to leave this running under the open source driver, in about 15 or 30 minutes, this computer is just going to freeze, the screen's going to have all kinds of artifacts, and it'll just lock up, and I'll have to reboot it. Don't want to have to do that, so just switching to the proprietary driver right now. But anyway, yeah, if you guys have any questions about installing Ubuntu 16.04, or if you want any other information, if you have any questions about using it, let me know, either down in the comments section below, whether you're on YouTube or Dailymotion, or you can let me know in the forums over at nerdonthestreet.com. That is the website where you can also watch videos from any of the other Nerd on the Street channels, as well as this one. But yeah, that's everything I have to show you guys. That is installing Ubuntu 16.04. I'm Jacob Kaufman with nerdonthestreet.com, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.